Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Tony D's music channel. I'm Tony DeMeo, and today I want to tell you about something that I saw on TV from Elton John many years ago that changed my life forever. When I was a teenager, I watched late night TV shows all the time, and in 2006, September, I saw Elton John on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and Jay, asking his pre-prepared questions, asked Elton why he did not own an iPod, and Elton wisely said that he does not because he always listens to albums in their entirety, completely, and never listens to just one or two or three songs from an album because he views albums as a complete story rather than just a collection of songs. And this changed my life because after I saw that, I made it a goal of mine to always listen to albums in their entirety completely as much as possible. I would always do this. And luckily, bus rides to school were only 40 minutes, the length of most albums throughout history. And it really changed the way that I listen to music for the better, because albums are just better when you take in the whole thing at once. Because a really great album is supposed to be listened to all the way through. And this really changed in music in the mid-60s when artists like the Beatles and Dylan and the Rolling Stones started to make albums with consistent themes to them that told a complete story. Rubber Soul, for example, has a collection of songs that all deal with love and romance. It's a consistent theme there. And then in the 70s, we started to have double albums. We started to have concept albums. It started in the 60s, but it really, really expanded in the 70s. With Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick, which tells a whole story that is really quite complex and hard to follow. And then you have artists like the Alan Parsons Project and Roxy Music, which had albums with consistent themes. The Alan Parsons Project, for example, had albums that told a complete story from beginning to end. Their second album was I, Robot, and those songs told the story of the novel I, Robot in all those songs. And then you had an album of theirs like Eve, where all the songs deal with relations between men and women. And it's not really a consistent story, but it's a consistent theme. And I really, really admire, and I've thought this since I was 15 or so, and started to notice this, when artists really, really show their intimate moments in an album. When you have albums like On the Beach by Neil Young, where he was in a really bad place in his life, and the last three songs on the album, Ambulance Blues and On the Beach and Motion Pictures, really capture the depressed, isolated state he was in. And I really respect when someone is brave enough to put that intimate part of themselves on an album for all of us to hear. And then you have Tom Petty, who started out his career making songs full of, albums full of rock and roll songs that didn't have much deep meaning to them. But then in the 80s and 90s, when he got into this really tough place in his life because he was getting divorced from his wife, he was deeply depressed, he was addicted to drugs, and then you had albums like Wildflowers and Echo, which dealt with all these things in his songs. And it's incredibly refreshing to hear. I just admire so much when artists do that. I get really bored of albums that are just rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll, without much variety to them at all. It's